yourself, when are people going to wise up and pay a little bit more attention to what it is Sagamore Spirits is doing? So, hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, we are back at it again, and with another review from Sagamore Spirits. I ask myself quite often, when are people really gonna kind of pay attention to what it is that Sagamore Spirits out of Baltimore, Maryland is doing? I think this brand itself flies way too far under the radar for what it is they're doing. And I'm really excited to do today's review. This is their newest release, which is the Sagamore Rye Whiskey finished in PX Sherry casks. This was finished in, again, PX Sherry for upwards of 18 months. MSRP on this coming in at right around that $80 price point. So for what it is, I think that becomes a pretty decent value in today's market. It is a 4-year-old sourced rye whiskey, so we probably have a good idea of where it's sourced from. 106 proof, great proof. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into this. I have sat down with it prior, and again, I was blown away, and I think you'll see that as we kind of dive into it. So rather than waste any more time, let's kind of dive into today's review. Color-wise, as you can see, that beautiful, rich, kind of mahogany, reddish kind of hue to it. Move the whiskey around in the glass a little bit. Pretty decent oils. Again, at that 106 proof, you should start to see some of these oils kind of linger just with some of the viscosity that's going to be there. Again, great oils. So, all right, let's dive into the nose. The sherry influence on it does not overshadow the great or fantastic rye whiskey that Sagamore has access to. Right away for me, in addition to just still that beautiful like rye spice that's there, the baking spices of that rye kind of just kick in pretty heavy. I'll even say there's a little bit of a mint kind of combined with this like kind of chocolate or a cherry chocolate. Or in addition to that, I remember back being younger, my mom always ended up with these kind of like candied apples. So they were like that deep kind of rich red or like a dark maroon that had all this like spice and sweetness to it. That's kind of resonating in my mind. So if you're older like I am and you are familiar with that candied apple, those slices that you would get, I think in a can of some sort, that's resonating in my mind. Yeah, absolutely love the mint chocolate kind of combined with that richness of that candied apple. Really beautiful note. There is a slight herbal aspect to it, which is something that I typically get with Sagamore's kind of rye. Not on the dill side, much more on the minty side, but also this herbal characteristic. Almost like, you know, like a root beer note, something along those lines. It has this really overall rich aroma to it. So it smells like it's decadent, like it's quality. You're not overshadowing the great nose of the rye and the combination of that PX Sherry kind of influence. It just has a really beautiful, balanced nose so far. Yeah, that sweet oak, there's definitely that oak presence that's kind of combining with that baking spice. I think with the dark fruit jam that I'm picking up, it's kind of that combo of that spicy apple, that sweet, spicy kind of apple, oak, mint, chocolate. Really great combination so far. And I think there's also a touch of a honey or like a honey graham cracker note that's there. It's very rich and decadent so far without it being like overly heavy on the PX Sherry. I think they did a good job, even with this being aged in PX Sherry barrels for upwards of 18 months. It's not dominating, so you still are getting the influence of the rye and the sherry combo. Nice kind of vanilla custard as well. So beautiful, beautiful nose so far. Really interested to kind of get into the taste here. Cheers, guys. Wow. Right away, I'll say the mouth feel and coating fantastic. So far as it's kind of, you know, moving around in your mouth a little bit, it feels thick, feels rich. That sweetness of the PX Sherry is having a beautiful influence on the oak. It's more of a sweet oak, baking spice, mint chocolate. Again, like I was getting on the nose, there's that candied apple that's kind of combined with maybe the baking spice, maybe a slight like nutmeg, cinnamon, all of that combination. Yeah, love the fact that you're getting two waves of this, both the rye whiskey and that PX Sherry. You're almost picking up both of those as you're kind of swallowing. You do get right away, for me, much more of the rye part of it influence up front. And then as you swallow or you kind of get into the finish part of it, the influence of the PX Sherry, the sweetness kind of lingers a little bit, but you still have that overall fantastic baking spice on this one. I think also you need to kind of chew on this one, get it in your mouth, move it around, allow it to kind of coat your palate, and you'll be rewarded. You'll kind of get all of what it is that I'm describing right now, kind of in a nutshell. There's an awful lot going on. It's very well balanced, all of these different kind of flavor profiles, but this, I think, is one that you need to kind of take your time with, but don't rush it. When you get it in your mouth, you know, try not to just swallow it right away. Try to coat the palate as much as you possibly can, and I think you'll still get a bit of what it is that I'm kind of describing as the rye influence a little bit up front, that PX Sherry kind of on the mid to the back of the palate, and kind of transitioning into the finish part of it. I think that herbal note that I'm picking up is nice from the standpoint of maybe it being more of like an herbal, like tea, like green tea, black tea, not an overpowering, like earthy kind of herbal note. It is a little bit more on the sweet side. And again, I think all of that rye is beautifully balanced by the PX Sherry. So you've got this more intense rye that's balanced by the sweetness of that PX Sherry. So fantastic, fantastic blend so far on this one. As the finish begins to develop, again, that lingering candied apple, baking spice, sweet, rich oak is a lot of what the finish is. Beautifully balanced, like I kind of continue to say. It's one of those whiskeys that I think just makes you want to kind of take your time. I could see being here in Wisconsin when the conditions start to get colder and maybe being around a fire, this would be a fantastic, fantastic bottle to have and to share, just because there's that little bit of warmness that's there to it. But overall, the spice, the sweetness balanced, it's just kind of that almost perfect balance of a finished whiskey, and when one is done really well, what it can kind of give you. So again, I think if I kind of describe or kind of give you that finish part of it, again, I think the balance of it for me is key. I love, again, getting that rye spice up front with kind of the finish or mid palate balance of the PX Sherry coming through. But again, that baking spice, the lingering kind of mint chocolate, that candied apple with the baking spice, all of that just makes this a really well done rye whiskey. So kudos to the guys at Sagamore Spirit. Again, I think they've done a really fantastic job with yet another finished whiskey. And again, I think, like I said early on, Sagamore is far too underrated. And I hope more people kind of start to understand what it is that Sagamore is doing, and really putting out some fantastic, not only ryes, but hopefully soon some bourbons. But again, their finished ryes have been absolutely fantastic. There you have it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into another one of my reviews. Always appreciate the support. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the Patreon link in the description below. So guys, as always, remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Stop sleeping on Sagamore Spirits. Go find some, come back, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on this. Cheers.